Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. This is the Emergency Policy Group meeting, and I am sitting in for Stacy White as chair today. And I will now, I guess, turn the meeting over to Mike Merrill, our county administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. Thank you all for being here. Obviously, the reason we're here, and for the record, is to ask for a local state of emergency in light of Hurricane Irma. And just for background, the governor has issued a state of emergency, and most or all counties have already issued a local state of emergency or are planning to do so. This particular state of emergency that we're asking for is a little bit different. It's two pieces. One is for the standard powers that go along with the local state of emergency. The second is there in reserve in the event of a need for a mandatory evacuation. So there's two separate pieces to this. In a moment, I'll ask Preston Cook, our emergency manager, to just give you an update on the storm and what we're expecting, and then ask Paul Johnston, from the county attorney's office to just walk through the ordinance before the policy group takes action. I do want to say, though, that since I have the opportunity, even though it looks like the hurricane is tracking away from us, it hasn't made a turn. We shouldn't take it for granted. We have not taken this storm for granted from the beginning. We have treated this very seriously. I've been talking with my counterpart in Pinellas County about potential evacuation needs from Pinellas. Been on a number of calls, both statewide and local. We should not lay back. This thing could turn in a moment's notice, even though it looks like it's tracking away. Preston can talk to that. So just want folks out there to realize that this is a serious event. We need to take it seriously, and we're planning accordingly. So with that, I'll ask Preston Cook to tell us what the latest is.
Thanks, Mike. Serious, and we need to take it very serious. Irma is a Category 5 storm right now, a very powerful storm, and the threats that we're looking at from a storm of this magnitude really are I'm sorry, can you hear me? The threats that we're anticipating or could see from a storm of this magnitude really include those life-threatening winds, rains, storm surge being the most dangerous, which is the one that kills the most folks in a hurricane. And of course, this could impact anywhere in the state of Florida. As we look at the current track that we're showing on the screen, it really has the entire state of Florida still in the cone of uncertainty. So what we're doing is being here activated at a level 2, being prepared for these potential impacts. Currently, we have shelters on standby to be prepared for any sheltering operations and if we need to call for any mandatory evacuations. What we're looking at in terms of the storm track that we're currently seeing, within 3 days, we should know the storm should be somewhere impacting the state of Florida. We don't know exactly where that will be. Right now, we have 3 scenarios. One, if it goes up the east coast of the state of Florida, we would have less impacts here. But if it goes up the spine, then we could see those potential to have 3 to 6 feet of storm surge. If the storm goes up the west coast or comes across and impacts us on the west side of the state, that's where we're talking about these catastrophic storm surges of 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. That's what we have to plan for. That's what we are planning for currently for the worst case scenario, because we just don't know what this storm will do. And that's why we're asking for the local state of emergency at this point to take care of the actions that we'll need to take care of to include those possible evacuations and those sheltering operations. Paul?
Group members, the executive order in front of you today, we're asking you to implement. Number one, it declares that a state of emergency does exist in Hillsborough County, and it authorizes and invokes the powers of our county emergency management ordinance and our county emergency management plan both. Thirdly, it authorizes the evacuations of any areas or zones determined by the county administrator in consultation with the director of emergency management to be evacuated at the times and areas that they believe that are necessary. It empowers the county administrator with the statutory authority that is provided for him during the times of emergency to take action to protect the citizens of the county. And lastly, it adopts the governor's executive order that was enacted yesterday.
Thank you, Paul. At this time, we'll just open it up for questions from members of the group. And again, I want to stress, been at several functions lately and listening to chatter, and where I live, people are starting to let their guard down a little bit. And if I have an opportunity in front of the camp, this is not a time to let your guard down. Please take it seriously. So, David, would you like to make any comments? And I know we have the police chief from Tampa. If you'd like to join us up here or make any comments, you're welcome to.
Thank you, Commissioner. No, I think, public safety is certainly been prepping for this. We've had some notice, and I think from our standpoint, we're certainly as ready as we can be for the recovery, and I'll let the discussion take place, but I'm certainly prepared to make a motion.
It's a good retirement gift.
Well, yes, I'll tell you, it just wouldn't let me get out.
Any other questions or discussion, Mayor?
No, we have issued a similar executive order within the city limits, so we were anticipating this occurring. So we stand ready with our friends at HCO and Hillsborough County to make sure that we react accordingly. We have trained for this for a long time. Now it's all about execution, and so I have the utmost confidence in everybody in this room to do what they are trained to do, and we're going to get through this. But we do need to make sure and to remind people to, execute their plan, and if there is a call for evacuation, then to do so with great haste. So,
Right. Anything from the fire chiefs? No comment? Okay.
need a motion for approval, David? I think you were going to.
And we need that, and then I need to ask for public comment before we take the motion. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to? Yes, Commissioner.
I'll pass on the mic, but with the most extreme case of storm surge, how far inland would you anticipate waters coming into Hillsborough County?
As we're looking at the track of the storm, we're looking at level C evacuations, which is 15 to 17 foot storm surge possibilities, as we're saying. I don't have the exact lines because of the way that our county is structured. It comes in different areas throughout the county, but we're not talking about just the coastal areas. We're not talking about as far inland as level E goes, but we are talking about up to 83,000 people that could be impacted if we do a level C evacuation here in the county.
Yes, Mayor.
Preston, to follow up on Commissioner Higginbotham's question, we're going to be on the backside of this storm, and if the track continues and it's off of Daytona Beach,
Yes, sir.
we anticipate what would the storm surge be for level A? Harbor Island, Davis Island, Bayshore.
The center track of the storm, if it goes up the spine of the state, is what one of the predictions are at this time. One of the possibilities are. We're looking at 3 to 6 foot of storm surge. And if you remember during Debbie, we had 3 foot of storm surge, and the storm was off coast, and we had flooding on Bayshore, and those impacts were seen there. So 6 foot of storm surge would be obviously twice as bad as that, and so we would see some significant impacts.
So 6 if it goes up the spine. What if it stays over on the East Coast?
If it goes over on the East Coast, we may only see some wind impacts, some of the rain that we'll get from it, depending on how far off the East Coast it goes. That's the best case scenario for us. But that West Coast track is really that worst case scenario that we just don't know if it's gonna, not go that way right now, and that's that 15 to 17 foot storm surge.
And the velocity of the wind, if it tracks on the East Coast, would be what on our coast?
It depends on what the strength of the storm is once it reaches there and how it impacts with land. So right now, they're anticipating at least a Category 3 and possibly a 4 storm. And then depending on how far it goes out on the East Coast track, that will determine how strong our winds are. We're still expecting, though, at this point, to get tropical storm force winds with this storm, 39 mile per hour. And if we get strong tropical storm force winds, that's up to 50, 58 mile per hour winds. Still could be some serious impacts for us.
And when would we anticipate these winds based on the track that we have now? When do you think we start feeling the effects of wind?
Currently, the current track shows that we would be expected to see some of these tropical storm force winds as early as Saturday night in our county, as early as Saturday night. There's different scenarios with the storm speeding up, slowing down. That could be as late as Sunday morning, but right now, one of the best case, or the track showing currently, lists that we could see those winds Saturday night.
And then people with disabilities, have those shelters opened yet, or?
We haven't called for any evacuations at this time. We've just been communicating with the people with special needs, making sure that we get them registered for the shelters. If you do allow us to call for an evacuation, we will have special needs shelters open for them. Right now, we're just communicating with them to make sure we understand what their needs are.
Very good.
I do want to verify just to step on this to make sure I'm clear. So if it stays on its current track, you're expecting no storm surge in Tampa Bay then?
I wouldn't say it's current track, Mayor. I would say that we're in the cone of uncertainty, and we have to remember that we don't look at the little black line. As we saw with
Right.
Charlie, that little black line will change very quickly.
Right.
So the scenarios that we have right now, because of the modeling that's done by the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service, shows 3 scenarios. One is East Coast, one is straight up the spine, and one is to the west. That's a very good question, because I know a lot of people are looking at that track and saying, oh, it's definitely going East Coast. And we want them to make sure that that's not something you look at this point. As long as we're in the cone of uncertainty, that storm can go anywhere within that track. And we've seen them do that in the past.
I understand that, but based on this model here, there'd be no storm surge. But if it goes off this course here, then obviously we're somewhere between 0 and 16 foot is what we're saying.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct? Okay. Thank you.
Very good point. Thank you. Any further questions? Commissioner Kemp?
I'd just like to know when we're looking at it in terms of having some certainty about the track to the east center, or when that turn occurs. When are we thinking that might be?
They're expecting the turn to take place Friday. The only problem with that is, with a storm of this magnitude, if it does come towards the west coast, by Friday, it's too late for us to make these determinations, because we have to have time to move people if we're going to evacuate before the winds get here. And right now, with the worst case scenario, we're looking at a 24 to 26 hour lead time needed to call for an evacuation and have people safely in shelters before those winds will get here. But Friday, they're looking at is when this storm may make the turn, but we have to wait and see. But we can't wait for making these decisions.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman?
Yeah.
If you don't mind, just before I walked in, when I was a few minutes late getting in here, I was talking to Gordon Gillette. And I'm sure everyone has that information, but he said that as of 10, 15 minutes ago, that he's bringing in 1,400 additional linemen. He typically would have 600, and so he's bringing an additional 1,400. He already has 1,100 of those committed, and he's bringing in an additional 600 tree trimmers. So he said this is what he would typically prepare for a Category 3 hurricane, and so he's basically trying to over-prepare for what he thinks would happen. So sounds like Tico. Of course, they're always doing a fantastic job. They're very prepared for this hurricane. Do you have any numbers from a standpoint of electrical outages that you're prepared for in this?
We've been in constant contact with Tico as well, and making sure that we're asking them that very question. Right now, they're not giving a lot of numbers to us right now. They've been coordinating with the state as well. I know they've been asking from that level of the same information. But they're here in the EOC with us, and right now, with the current track, they're pooling resources, making sure they have, as you said, additional linemen and folks here in our community. But we'll need to get the latest by 5 p.m. today of what they would expect to see in terms of outages right now. And again, it depends on the track of the storm.
And Preston, so that listening public, how would they find out the latest information on the storm?
Well, of course, they can go to the county's website, hillsboroughcounty.org/stay safe, and they can get as much information about what's going on in our activities right now. Of course, we're doing social media with Twitter and with Facebook. And of course, we're going to communicate with our partners in the media, especially if we call for an evacuation and when we open shelters. We've been doing that all day as we went to a level 2 at 10 a.m. this morning. We've been communicating regularly. We will continue to do that and ratchet that up even, especially if we're telling folks to take those specific actions to make sure that they're safe.
And for people who aren't connected to the internet, what would be the call center number?
They can call the call center number 272-5900 is the number that we give directly to the call center. There is a second number there, is there? Is that the 272-5900 is the number?
272-5900. Okay. Mayor, did you have another comment? Okay. I will need, I guess, a motion to pass the resolution and a second.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to pass the resolution for the executive order of Hillsborough County declaring a state of local emergency. Do we do roll call or is this?
It's up to you. It's up to you.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like sign opposed, show that passed. Okay, so we are now in a local state of emergency in response to Hurricane Irma. Any further comments? Oh,
Liana Lopez, Chief Communications Administrator for Hillsborough County. There's one other tool that our citizens can use. They can register for HCFL Alert, and they'll be able to receive messaging that way, emergency messaging through the EOC, and we'll begin that messaging following this action.
yeah, I believe the city of Tampa also has that too. And what is that information?
City of Tampa Chief Tom Forward and City of Tampa's Emergency Manager. They can also get that information from cityoftampagov.net/alert Tampa, and they can get the information that is being put out and broadcast by the city. The mayor has also issued and has his communications director pushing out regular social media hits as well. So anybody that's following the City of Tampa on any of the different alerts, the Facebook and all of those different pieces will also be able to get the up-to-date information as well.
Okay, and they can also sign up for those alerts at both those websites, the county and the city.
Tampagov.net/alert Tampa. They can sign in,
Okay.
put their numbers in that they want to be contacted, and that information will be pushed out anytime the mayor or anytime his administration puts out a notice.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry.
Was that contact through Twitter?
That's through the Hillsborough County website. You sign up, and then you could get text messages, email. It just depends on you can choose the type of communication you receive. We do know that our messaging is working. We've seen increased traffic to our website, and some pages, the Stay Safe page is up almost 10,000%.
Great.
Commissioner, one last question. Did that motion include the second part? Make sure we're good on the authorizing the county administrator if we need to change the evacuation order. I just want to make sure we're included on that.
Okay, I'll ask our attorney here, make sure we're, because I do,
Sheriff, could you repeat that, please?
the county administrator
I
being able to declare an evacuation.
In
order.
consultation with the Director of Emergency Management, yes.
Okay, does the action we took earlier take care of this?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's all we have?
Thank you.
Okay, any further comments, questions?
I just want to thank the governor. I think Governor Scott, I think it was most of you on the 800 call last night. He and his team are very prepared. They're very progressive, and they're basically any city with any needs, they're really stepping up and taking care of. So it's great to see that leadership from his team.
It really, I mean, he's been on the phone constantly,
Yes.
calling myself, other mayors, people. It's been really good to see that he's,
They're very organized.
and I know that because of Hurricane Harvey, you know, it's heightened the awareness, obviously, which might be to our favor of getting people more prepared as we move forward. Okay, so no further business? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.